It was a kind of slow. So we're going to start with today's article. And this is going to be the one. Sorry. There you go. This is something random, perhaps, not related to what's happening around the world, but is to learn some new vocabulary. The title is The Soviet Flying Beast That Never Really Took Off. Okay, one more time. The Soviet Flying Beast That Never Really Took Off. Now, to understand perhaps better, we're going to start reading this. It is the only surviving prototype of this unusual plane now sits dilapidated in a field near Moscow. It was once the hope of the Soviet Union against US submarine attacks. The next part. The Bartini Variu, VVA-14, okay, that's a name. The Bartini Variu, VVA-14. The letters are an acronym for Vertical Takeoff Amphibious Aircraft, and 14 was the number of the engines. Was designed to take off from anywhere without a runaway and to be capable of sustained flight just above the water surface. So that's all the information. Again, it's something not related to what's happened, but is to learn to help us learn some vocabulary. So what were you able to understand, Annelise? What can you tell me about this article?
Well, I really don't understand, but I think that maybe it can be the Soviet and maybe I don't know if an object, but I can't really understand.
Okay, so let's understand together. Yes, you're right. This is related to Soviet, right, to the Soviet Union. And look, this title is going to help you understand everything better. You know, as always, when I make you listen in the chat, you can check information little by little. That's the first thing, okay? That's the headline of this article. The Soviet flying beast that never really took off. Do you know, well, I'm sure, but we're going to remember what is took off. That's past, right, of something. What is
Yes.
that phrasal verb? Do you know how to use that phrasal verb?
When, for example, when airplane
Mhm.
flies, it's
Yes,
the transition of the land and the sky.
yes, okay, that's a great, really, really great way of explaining that. Exactly. To take off is the action that a plane has to make, right? When it's in land in a specific field, right? And it's gaining certain kind of energy or power to lift, right? To lift into the air. So yes, that is to take off. So here we're talking about a Soviet flying beast. What do you think this is? We're going to keep reading. You're going to understand better some terms. What are they talking about? What do you think they are referring by a Soviet flying beast that never really
Uh,
took off?
Maybe airplane.
Okay, very good. And why do you think they are using these adjectives like beast that never really took off?
um, Airplane that is really unusual, maybe, or really big.
Okay, yes, that's great. Okay, you have the best adjectives offered there. So let me read the first paragraph one more time, Annelise, and we're going to verify that. Okay, look,
Okay.
it says the only surviving prototype of this unusual plane, right, now sits dilapidated in a field near Moscow. It was once the hope of the Soviet Union against US submarine attacks. Now, what do you get there, Annelise? Once you tell me something, I'm going to copy and paste it to the chat. But first, try to explain me the words that you were able to understand.
That is airplane that has to had to attack another country.
Okay, all right, exactly. Do you remember where were the countries? Okay, because The Cold War, right? It was mainly between two countries. One was Russia or the Soviet Union at that time. And what was the, or who was the enemy of the Soviet Union? Do you remember?
Mm,
It was only one, and it was really powerful, or it's still really powerful.
yes, I can remember. I heard the country, but now I can't remember.
Don't worry, don't worry. Yes, because this is not a very well-known war, right? It was a Cold War because it didn't happen. The Cold War was about threatening, about telling things, or sending a spy, something like that. But there wasn't really a war, right? That's why perhaps in history this is not well known. In school, right, and in many places they are not going to teach you this. So we have this. Look, this is the first paragraph in the chat. It says, right, the only surviving prototype. It means that it was going to be a machine, and actually it was the first, right, the first and the only surviving of this unusual plane. You were right, right? We were talking about a plane that was really unusual because of the size, and you're going to see in a moment the shape of the plane. And it says, but it was the hope, right? It was once the hope of the Soviet Union against the US, right? So the main enemy of the Soviet Union were the Americans, all right, the United States. So the main purpose of that plane was to attack submarine, okay, U.S. submarines, all right. So as you can see, they were preparing for war, but it never happened. Okay, it never happened. There was never a war over there, and this is the second part of the first explanation. And it says this is the name of the prototype. All right, the Bartini Verview VVA 14, and they are explaining what it means. The letters are an acronym for Vertical Takeoff Amphibious Aircraft, and 14 was the number of engine. Was designed, and again coming back, it was designed to take off from anywhere without a runway and to be capable of sustained flight just above the water surface. I know that there could be words that are hard to understand, but what do you get from this idea?
That they are talking about the name of this airplane and
Very good.
how it mm, I don't know this word, how it take off.
Okay, yes, yes, you can say that exactly how it takes off, right? How it
Okay,
takes.
yes.
Great. Yes, that is correct. I'm going to paste it again so you have it in the chat. That's the name, right? And the letters, of course, are in Russian, but to the, let's say, English, it will be vertical takeoff amphibious aircraft. And this is interesting because this is a plane that was not able only to be in the ground, right, on land, but it was also amphibious, right? What is
Yes.
amphibious, Annelies? How can you describe that word?
That this thing it's for the ocean, for the sea.
Uh-huh, exactly, very well. When something is related to something amphibious, it means that it functions, it works also in the water, right? Any sea, lake, and of course, this was thought to be in the sea. And also it has something special. What is this analysis? It says it was designed to take off from anywhere without a runway. What does it mean? And also the name, vertical takeoff. So what is the difference with this plane and other planes? I think we now have planes like this, but what's the main difference? What is a vertical takeoff? And what do they mean by saying taking off from anywhere without a runway?
Um, I think that this airplane goes up, and the normal airplanes goes in a way, in a horizontal way. And I think
Okay.
that this is the most important change of this airplane.
Okay, that's correct. Exactly, right? A plane usually to take off, it has to go horizontally, right? And it needs
Yeah.
to gain certain, like, as I was saying, power to go up. But this one, it's quiet, right? It's standing still in a place, and when you want to fly, you just start the engine and it flies, right? It goes up. So it's a vertical way of flying. Very similar to what's going to be a chopper or a helicopter, right? Something like that. Good. Now, to finish, and this is the last thing I'm going to be reading, let's try to analyze this to finish in this last minute. I'm going to show you this very briefly. All right. And okay, so there you go. Yes, you were saying, right, because of the size and everything, yes. And indeed, it was something big and something interesting because as you can see, it has many things that make this machine, let's say, be not also something that flies, but also something that can navigate right in the ocean. And that's it. All right, again, something different, perhaps to see a little bit, or well, yes, a different kind of vocabulary, but that's going to be everything. I don't know if you have any final questions or comments, Annelise.
No, no, teacher. Everything is okay.
Okay, that's perfect. So please, tomorrow, we're going to be working with the presentations. I hope that everybody can finish tomorrow. And it's the same logic, right? It's still 10 minutes, your PowerPoint presentation, and you explaining everything. And that's going to be it. Thanks for being here, Annelise, and I hope you have a good night.
Okay, teacher. You too. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Hello, Maria Elena, are you there?
Hello, teacher. How are you?
Hey, I'm fine. What about you?
I'm good, teacher. I'm so sorry for not being in class yesterday.
Okay, don't worry. The thing is, perhaps we have to take advantage of this conversation or this time. Yesterday we were practicing for, well, something related, as I told you, right, for the structure of tomorrow's presentation. We practiced a lot. It was interesting because we were practicing for very short answers, less than 1 minute answers that need to have or needed to have an introduction, a development, and a conclusion. All right. The document, and this is something perhaps I can show you now. The document is in the folder, okay, A14 folder. And the main idea here, Maria Elena, is that you need to use this structure for tomorrow's presentation, as I was saying last week, because the evaluation is going to be on the basis on that. What you mentioned in your introduction, how you develop, right, the body, and how you work on the conclusion. And it's not hard. You're going to see it's not hard. I'm going to show it to you right now. The same, 10 minutes, any topic you want, but something I told you also last week, it has to be about a decision, an option that you're choosing, right? At the beginning of the presentation, Maria Elena, you have to ask yourself a question and you have to make us, okay, and let us know that question. For example, to begin, you're going to say, this is a question that I have, right? And the question is, which one is better, right? Is it better to, I don't know, do exercises at a gym or to do exercises at home? So there you are having two options and you are only going to choose one to explain that in your presentation, talking about the benefits of the option that you chose, of course, and talking about perhaps some disadvantages of the other option and letting us know why you didn't choose, all right, the other one. Now, what I'm showing you right now, because I'm sharing my screen, is a brief explanation on that. And please, you're going to let me know if you have some questions about that, Maria Elena, which is this one. Okay, so it's mainly three steps. It's divided in four here. but it's mainly three. The first step is your introduction. Again, for tomorrow's presentation, in your introduction, you should have your question, okay, a question, and you should answer that question by letting us know, right, what's your decision. Then here, this was for practicing yesterday. It's not only two benefits. You need to tell us at least five or more benefits or positive things about that option that you chose. All right. So again, the introduction should have the question, what the options are, what is the option that you are choosing, and what are the benefits, at least five, or the positive aspects of that option that you chose. And then the next two steps here are the same. It was again for the practice yesterday. This is about the development, okay, or the body. Each benefit or each positive aspect that you're going to show has to have a reason, right? And say this because it's very helpful, right, to stay at home because of the pandemic. I think it's really the best option to exercise at home. Mm, it has many more benefits, and of course, you can mention the let's say the counter arguments for the other part. And when you do that with all the positive aspects and with all the benefits, let's say, that's up to you. The last part is just a conclusion. That is very simple. It's just summarizing or restating your opinion, right? Saying things like, finally, here, these are some things, but this is for short ideas. For longer ideas, you can say and mention the words that we were practicing for writing, okay? And it actually is here. If you go to the last part, you have some words here. Finally, in conclusion, to conclude, all in all, to sum up, this is something that you can say in the last part to finish tomorrow's presentation. But again, and in terms of time, I would advise the following. The first 1 to 2 minutes should be for the introduction, for the question, the answer, and mentioning the benefits, not developing the benefits, just mentioning them. Then 7 minutes at least, all right, for the development or the body, explaining the benefits or the positive aspects, contrasting with the other ideas. And again, from 1 to 2 minutes again, according to how much you used in the introduction, to have the conclusion. That's everything in a summary, Maria Elena. I don't know if you have any questions. Please let me know because that's what we're going to be evaluating tomorrow.
Maybe the final for the conclusion. Should I have to say which of one of the options that I will choice? It will be better, or just
Yes,
that part is a little confused.
actually, in the conclusion, it's going to be a little bit repetitive, okay? But you have two options in the conclusion. As it says here, you can only summarize everything and you can say, well, finally, I can say that because of all these benefits, and mainly this benefit and this benefit, I think that this option, right, is the best idea, right? And perhaps the other option also has some benefits, but right now and at this moment, it has more disadvantages than advantages. And that's why I chose that one. And that's it, right? And you can finish your presentation there. So you can make a very brief summary, all right, or restate your idea and you can say again, well, and this is why I chose this option because of these benefits, and you can mention all the benefits, right? And because of all the disadvantages that it has, you can mention again, just mention them, and that's it, right? And you can finish there. So it's up to you. But the main idea that you need to have in the conclusion, it's like mentioning again, what is the option that you chose, right? What is the option that you chose? And the other option that you didn't, perhaps you can mention it as well, but saying things like, but it's not the best option now because of these things. And and again, those are ways of finishing up. The idea is summarizing or restating the option, right? And again, summarizing and trying to mention some benefits that were the stronger ones that you had. All right?
Okay, teacher. Okay.
Great. Any other questions? Because mainly that's everything. That's going to be evaluated tomorrow. It's going to be one thing related to introduction, that's going to be one part of the evaluation, the development, of course, and the conclusion. And as we were learning pronunciation rules, that's also going to be evaluated, right? So introduction, development, conclusion, and pronunciation is going to be evaluated in tomorrow's presentation. All right?
Okay, teacher. Another thing, when I start my presentation, I have to say this is the introduction, this is development, or just talk.
Just like that, we're going to realize because when you start, right? For example, you start sharing your screen and it's in the title of your presentation, right? After the title, if you want, in the second slide, you can write the question. But we're going to realize in the introduction, you're going to mention certain things, but you don't need to say that this is the introduction, right? You only need to mention the question, the answer to your question, which option you are choosing, and mentioning the benefits, only mentioning the benefits. That's going to be like an index, right? Like an index, so that we know what you're going to talk about. When you finish mentioning that and you say, well, I'm going to start talking about the benefits, then we're going to realize that you are in the development, right? So you don't need to mention the word because of the structure and what you're going to be saying. We're going to recognize in which part of the structure you are. All right?
Okay, teacher.
Great. Perfect. Now, very few minutes, but at least we're going to do something. This is going to be, let's say, the conversation, today's conversation, at least the headline and the very first part. It's about something different, something strange related to many years ago, but it's like this. The headline says, the Soviet flying beast that never took off. Okay, one more time. The Soviet flying beast that never really, sorry, I didn't mention that word, that never really took off. All right. And the first part says, the only surviving prototype of this unusual plane now sits dilapidated in a field near Moscow. It was once the hope of the Soviet Union against US submarine attacks. All right? So, what do you understand of all those words, Maria Elena?
Well, it's about maybe a big plane
Mhm.
that we're using in the war. I don't know, maybe.
Okay, good, very well. Do you remember what kind of word? Do you remember perhaps the names of some countries or something?
Yeah,
Or
the
the
Soviet
great?
and with the United States.
Yes, that is correct. Very well, Maria Elena. This is a Soviet plane, right? A Soviet beast, or well, it's beast because of the shape, because of everything, right? And actually, you're right. This is a Soviet plane that was going to be used. Okay, it was never used because this is a war that never happened, but it was going to happen. All right, but it never happened. So it's a Soviet plane that the Soviet Union was going to use against US submarines, right? So US submarines. Now, what do you think? I already told you part of the answer, perhaps, Maria Elena, in my comment. But why do you think that this is the headline? It says the Soviet flying beast that never really took off. Why is that?
So, what is the meaning of the topic of what?
Exactly. What is the meaning here? What do you understand? And if you understand the headline very well, why do you think
Mhm.
that it really never took off? So,
Yeah,
what do you understand of all that idea?
maybe it's a plane that they built but never fly,
Okay, very well. Exactly.
never work.
Exactly, right? And this is a plane, right? And actually, it's part of a prototype that they, yes, they built this prototype, but they actually never used it. Yeah, they never used it. So it's still there and it has not been used. And let's read this last part, and you're going to tell me again to finish this conversation what do you understand. What I'm going to read now is the name of the plane. I'm telling you that, but you're going to explain the rest. The Bartini variant VVA 14 slash. The letters are an acronym for Vertical Takeoff Amphibious Aircraft. The 14 was the number of engines. And again, a dash over here. It was designed to take off from anywhere without a runway and to be capable of sustained flight just above the water surface. So, what do you get there, Maria Elena? Can you tell me some of the characteristics, perhaps, of this plane, or what do you understand of the paragraph that I read?
Teacher, can you repeat?
Tell me, Maria Elena.
Sorry, teacher, can you repeat again, please?
Okay, yes, don't worry, I'm going to do it one more time. So it says, the Martini Verti VVA-14, the letters are an acronym for Vertical Takeoff Amphibious Aircraft, and 14 was the number of engines. It was designed to take off from anywhere without a runway and to be capable of sustained flight just above the water surface. So, what do you get there, Maria Elena? What idea, what words can you get there?
Well, the acronyms of the name of that plane, it's about amphibious, something like that, and the number it's from the maybe
Mhm.
the person who worked in that.
Okay, okay, very close. Yes, then the first part you're right. It's related to something amphibious, and 14 is related to a number, but in this case, it's something different. Do you know what's engine? It's going to be the engines that this plane has, right? Any
Ah,
machine,
yeah, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
The machine
Yes,
that it used
uh-huh,
to fly.
exactly. It's the machinery that is going to power, right? The object, and it's going to let that fly, right? Those are engines. What else? What else were you able to understand, Maria Elena? What can you tell me about this plane?
I don't know.
What is this, Maria Elena? For example, it says this is part of the name, vertical takeoff. Is that a normal way of taking off? What is to take off, Maria Elena? How can you describe takeoff?
Take off?
Take off, right? It's a phrasal verb. It is used with planes, right? To take off. And the opposite of taking off is landing, right? If you traveled in a plane, you've heard, you know that the plane takes off and the plane lands, right? In the airport. What could it be vertical takeoff to finish now, Maria Elena? What do you think?
Maybe take off vertical when the plane take off. They arrived. No, they fly in a vertical way, right?
Yes, exactly. And how does a plane usually takes off? What is the difference with this plane and other planes? What do you
mm,
say?
I don't know, maybe it is the opposite,
Yes.
vertical.
And the other one is going to be horizontal, right? Yes. Other planes go horizontal, right, to take off because they need to gain this impulse, right, for a horizontal takeoff. This plane directly does it vertical way, right? And if you want to check, the word is in the chat, so you can take a look at that perhaps and look for that word. But yes, it's what you were explaining. Now, Maria Elena, do you have any final questions or comments before finishing the conversation?
No, teacher, everything is
Oh,
okay.
that's perfect. I'll be waiting then for you tomorrow to listen to your presentation, and that's everything for today, Maria Elena. Thank you very much.
Okay, teacher, thank you. See you
Thank you.
tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Bye.
Hello, Valentina. Are you there?
Hi, teacher. Yes, I'm here.
That's great. How are you? Is everything okay?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. And you?
That's great. Everything is fine. Thank you, Valentina. So let's begin with the presentation. But before, as I did with your partners, I wanted you to ask if you have any questions regarding tomorrow's presentation. You know that tomorrow is the third presentation and it has to follow the structure that we learned yesterday, right? That introduction, that development, and that conclusion. Now, perhaps it's going to be a little bit easier in the sense that you have time, right, to prepare your introduction, your question, your answer to the question, the benefits that you're going to mention, developing everything, and so on and so forth, right? Any questions or comments before starting the conversation related to that, Valentina?
Teacher, the presentations is only 10 minutes.
Yes, this one is going to be only 10 minutes. The last one that is on Monday, right? That's the last day of classes, and this is the last presentation on Monday. That's going to be 15 minutes. All right, but this one is only
Okay.
10.
Okay, teacher, it's okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
That's great. So let's begin with everything then, Valentina. With that done, let's go to this part. And you know what I'm doing with you this course is that I'm reading everything for you so that you can explain, right? It's something related to we were talking about this with Maria Elena. I don't know if you were able to hear something, but this is the headline of the article, Valentina. This is something related to some objects and perhaps even military, all right? But it's going to be helpful to learn some vocabulary. It says the Soviet flying beast that never really took off. All right, one more time. The Soviet flying beast that never really took off. Then I'm going to read the very first part of the introduction, and it says the only surviving prototype of this unusual plane now sits dilapidated in a field near Moscow, but it was once the hope of the Soviet Union against US submarine attacks. Okay, what do you get of all that information, Valentina? What were you able to understand up to that point?
It's talking about, I don't know, a flight.
One more time, a what?
It's talking about a flight, an airplane. I don't know.
Okay, okay, yes, yes, you're going well,
Prototype
Valentina. Uh-huh. What else?
That
What else are you?
something about the Soviet Union,
Very well.
and that I don't know.
Okay, no, actually, that's great. Okay, you have the main idea. This is about something that flies, right? A flying object. So we're talking about a plane in this case. But this is a very particular plane. Okay. Do you know what I mentioned this adjective, right? Unusual. So this is a very
Unusual.
unusual plane, right? And instead of Sovietic, okay, because Sovietic is going to be like incorrect in English, it's better if you say only Soviet. All right?
Soviet.
Exactly. So it's about the Soviet Union. And who was the enemy of the Soviet Union in Valentina? Do you know that?
Sorry, teacher.
The Soviet Union, right? It was like Russia, right? Some decades ago, the Soviet Union. Who was the enemy of the Soviet Union? Because this is a plane, but this is a military plane.
USA.
Yes, exactly. It was the USA, right? The United States of America. So
Yes.
I'm going to first. I'm just going to copy and paste the headline. But before doing that, let's analyze one more time the headline, please, Valentina. The headline says this: the Soviet flying beast that never really took off. Why do you think this is the headline? Why are we using beast, and why are we saying that never really took off? Why do you think we say
Took
so?
off.
Uh-huh. Took off is in past, right? The present would be take off.
Okay.
So who?
It's talking. I don't know that It's about an airplane, right? Or not?
Yes, yes, that is correct. It is an airplane, Valentina.
That it's an airplane that never that the Soviet Union never used.
Yes, that is correct. Perfect. And why beast? What do you think is describing beast? Because beast is a metaphor, right? How do you think is this plane, Valentina? Because they are using beast. What adjectives
What
can
is
you
beast, teacher?
beast? You know what's a beast? A beast, for example, even I don't know if you heard about the movies or the new movie that is going to come out, right? Godzilla versus King Kong. Okay, those are beasts.
Okay.
Okay, those are beasts.
Okay. Okay. No, that the Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, yes, exactly. There you
Okay.
go.
That maybe because that airplane is so big
Okay, yes, there you go.
and it's
Exactly.
dangerous. That's why they said beast, bit,
Very well, very well. Beast.
beast.
Yes, exactly, exactly. That's why they are calling this the Soviet flying beast, right? Because it is big, because it is unusual, and yes, it can also have this feature of being dangerous. That's great. Now, I'm going to read one more time the first part, and let's. By the way, that is in the chat right now. All right, that's the headline. Now let's go with the first part that I read also, but let's analyze this together one more time. It says the only surviving prototype of this unusual plane now sits dilapidated in a field near Moscow. It was once the hope of the Soviet Union against US submarine attacks. So again, what is the main idea there? I think we already mentioned that. But what words can you remember of this part? Is there a new word or interesting word for you, Valentina, in that uh, paragraph that I'm reading?
Yes, but can you read it again, please, teacher?
Of course, no problem. It says the only surviving prototype of this unusual plane now sits dilapidated in a field near Moscow. It was once the hope of the Soviet Union against US submarine attacks. So what do you
A
get?
dilapidated teacher.
Okay, good. You know, things that you don't, sometimes when you are not organized, and this happens to everybody perhaps, I think once in life. When you are not organized, right, and you don't organize your clothes and many things, you start throwing away, all right, some clothes, for example, in your on your bed, all right, on your bed, and you put one cloth over there, and you're not putting it in its place. It's only on the bed. One day, the other day, the other day, the other day, in the same place, in the same place. All right. So the clothes are kind of dilapidated there, all right, are dilapidated there, are in the same place. It means this word is used when you leave things in a certain place and you don't use it. It's part of things that you don't use. It's just part of something that you don't use anymore. And to understand that better, what I'm going to show you right now is the a photo. Okay, this is the plane, and this is dilapidated because it's there. As you can see, look at the grass. It's tall, right? The grass is tall,
Yes.
so it's there, is without being used, right? And it's with other machines as well. So that's to be dilapidated. Okay.
Okay.
So what else do you get here? Any interesting thing that you can mention about this paragraph? For example, how can you describe the word prototype, Valentina? What is a prototype?
A model of something.
Okay,
A
very well.
prototype on an airplane could be a specific model.
Yes, very well. Exactly. You have that as a prototype. And it says that it was the only hope, right, of the Soviet Union against US submarine attacks. So, what was the purpose of this plane, Valentina? What was its purpose? It never happened, but what was the
Sorry.
purpose?
Um, sorry, that plane they wanted to use for a fight to against USA, and
Okay,
was the hope because they thought that with this prototype they could win.
okay, that's
They
perfect.
could won.
No, it's okay. They could win. Because after
They
could, even
could
if it's
win.
past, it's the basic form. Great, exactly. That is very well explained, Valentina, and it's in the chat already. All right, and this is the last
Yes.
part for this last minute. Very briefly, I just want you to know something from that, and I'm not going to read it. We're going to read this together, and this is in the chat. There you go. So it says, and please, Valentina, you read this last paragraph that I copied and pasted. The Bartini.
The Bartini Beriev BBA 14. The letters are an acronym for Vertical Takeoff Am- Amphibious Aircraft, and 14 was the number of engines was designed to take off from anywhere without a runway and to be capable of sustained flight just above the water surface.
Okay, thank you very much. So as you can see, and if you understand these words, and also the last part, it has a very interesting feature, right? It is a plane. But what can you tell me first about this paragraph, Valentina, very briefly?
That how this prototype was decided,
Okay,
um, and the significance of the name of the airplane that was BVA 14.
okay, very well. And it says, right, the letters are an acronym. What is a vertical takeoff? What do you think is a vertical takeoff, Valentina?
I don't know, teacher, what is?
Okay, you know that every plane, you've been in many planes, Valentina, right? Every plane takes off, right? But usually a plane to take off, it needs to go first as a car, right? Horizontally, and it needs to
I,
gain speed, right? It needs to gain speed, and then it lifts, right? It goes horizontally. That's a horizontal takeoff. All planes do it well, most of the planes. But this plane has a vertical takeoff. It means that it's very close to a helicopter, right? A helicopter has a vertical takeoff. Do you understand the difference
uh,
between those two?
yes, now I understand, teacher.
Okay, so that's one feature that it has. And the last thing, amphibious, right? That's referred to something in the water. So this plane can also, all right, land, let's say quotation marks, land in water. All right, some planes can
Yes.
do it, right? This plane can do it as well. So, do you have any final questions or comments to finish, Valentina?
No, teacher, it's okay. Thank you.
That's great. No, you're very welcome. I'll see you tomorrow in class. All right?
Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye, teacher.
Bye bye, Valentina. Hello, Jaime. How are you?
Hello, Jose. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. What about you? Is everything okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Sorry for missing yesterday. Do we
That's
have
great.
the presentation tomorrow, right? Just to
Yes,
make sure.
yes. Yes, that is correct, Jaime. And actually, what I'm going to show you now, very briefly, you know that you have everything that I use in class is in the folder, right? The A14 folder. But right now,
Okay.
what I'm going to do very briefly, this is going to be 2 minutes. This is the thing that I explained yesterday. And this is the model, let's say, that you need to follow, all right? You need to have an introduction this time, right? And in your introduction, Jaime, you need to mention a question, right? Which one is better, or which option is going to be the best, or the fastest, or the something that is better than the other one. All right. So you need to
So I
ask
have to make a
yourself,
like I have to compare something.
more than comparing, even actually you can also make a comparison, but it's better that at the beginning of the presentation, Jaime, you make the decision and you say, for example, which one is the most difficult style, right, in swimming, this one or this one. And at that moment in introduction, you answer yourself. I believe that this
So I
is
have to
the
I have
part.
to give my answer and my opinion at the beginning. Then I can continue
Exactly.
to explain the
Exactly.
difference.
That is correct. Exactly. And also to mention many benefits and positive aspects of the option that you chose, or just explaining, as in that case, as you're saying very well, and perhaps in parts of the development, you can also make a comparison between the two, and you can let us know why that's the hardest, or why that's the best, or why that's the easiest, right? That's up to you. And that's going to be the presentation. Again, in the introduction, the question, you answer yourself in in the introduction, you tell the benefits, the positive aspects, or you make like a summary of all the things you're going to talk about. Okay, it's going to be like an index, right, that you're going to show. Then in the development, you have to develop those ideas, of course. If you mention some benefits of some of those, or why, or if you mention some reasons, you have to develop those reasons, right? Give examples, illustrate those examples, etc., etc. That's going to be the development. That's why you need to look for many reasons or many explanations, right, to have the development. And the last part is a conclusion, which is very simple. Everybody does this, right? A brief summary
Yes.
of everything you mentioned, right? That's
Okay.
why I chose
Excellent.
this one, and that's it. It has to be 10 minutes again. This is my advice in terms of time. 1 to 2 minutes maximum introduction, 7 minutes development, or it could be 8 if you want, and 1 minute could be a little bit more if you need to have a more concrete and structured conclusion, and that's going to be. Do you have any questions or comments, Jaime?
No, it's perfect. Thank you. I understood. And that's in the
That's
on the folder.
exactly. That's there, and you can check it just to see if you have any more questions or to see the details of each step. All right?
Excellent. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, Hannah, today we're going to read about, well, I'm going to be reading this for you. You're going to be telling me, right, everything that you're able to understand. And you know that little by little, we're going to have different discussions on the topics that we can talk about here. This is
Excellent.
something different. This is part of a section that they call travel, but it's more about something that was never used before. And let's read this. This is the headline, Jaime. It says, the Soviet flying beast that never really took off. Okay, one more time.
Okay.
The Soviet flying beast that never really took off. That's the headline. Now, this is the first part of the paragraph. The only surviving prototype of this unusual plane now sits dilapidated in a field near Moscow. But it was once the hope of the Soviet Union against US submarine attacks. All right, I think it's kind of mm, simple the way I'm explaining this, but what can you understand of all this information,
So the title. The title is about talking about a plane that probably was projected to be a beast, to be the best plane maybe on the time of those age of the
Jaime?
age, but it never took off. It never had a flight, you know.
Right, right,
And
exactly,
I'm not sure, but they're talking because some submarine from the US, I don't know,
exactly.
had
And
something to
there
see with
actually,
something.
exactly, actually, it lies, okay, the purpose of this prototype lies over there. And it was going to use, I'm going to read that part again. It says, but it was once the hope of of the Soviet Union against US submarine attacks. So what was the purpose of this plane with that explanation, Jaime? What do you get there?
It's competing, like comparing to be the best, you know, maybe in the air because the United States was competing to be the best on the ocean.
Okay, very well, exactly. It was like made to attack US submarines, right? Perhaps they felt this threaten, right, towards the Soviet Union because you know that it was a war that never happened. It was only showing, right, the power that they had
It was
and
like
sending spies.
the career to be the first one on the moon, you know, to get to the moon.
Yeah, yes, exactly, exactly. They had many things that they wanted to be like the best in, right? They were
Hmm.
competing, but they were showing also this military power, right? Which one had the best, let's say, machines, the best machinery, the best soldiers, the best technology, and so on and so forth. And that's why they built many things that are at the end never used. And this is one of those things, right? This is one of those things. And this is my first question, perhaps, to have a conversation there, and it can go to other place. This is a word that never happens, right? Oh, this is a word that happens differently. Now they are talking now, Jaime, that also words are going to change because they say that perhaps more than, and of course it's not going to change totally, right? Because we still have wars in Africa and in many other places where people is with guns and shooting each other, dying. But people say that these kind of countries like the U.S., the Soviet Union, China, they are in a war, but it's not the war that we know. It's like a digital war, right? What do you think about that idea, these different ideas of Warheim? Do you think that they are also dangerous? Or what do you think about that?
I think we are too empatia. How can I say empathy?
Yes, you can say emphatic, all right?
Sorry.
Empathia, that's going to be like empathy, okay? Empathy.
Okay.
So you can
So we
choose.
don't have empathy for what is going on the other countries that we don't realize how bad is the situation, like Syria, some countries in Africa. They are still living in a war. It's not a
Yes,
joke. People are leaving the country because they cannot live there. You see so many boats like trying to get to Europe through the Mediterranean Ocean
yes,
or sea. Sorry, sea. Um, sorry. So it's a real problem, and it's still we're having that. It's just that it doesn't show, like the TV doesn't show what is actually happening, because most of the channels or the big companies, they're part of the Europe, they're part of United States, and they don't want to show what is going on in other countries. And they're still part or involved on these problems, this war. But did you
exactly.
know that Donald Trump was the first president of the history that never started a new war for the U.S.?
Oh yes, yes. Actually, I heard that. That was a really positive thing that they mentioned about his period of time, because even under Obama's right term, there was a kind of war there. But yes, yes, and that's interesting, right? Because I
Yeah,
think
it's very
everybody's
fun
used to having
because
that.
someone will believe that this guy is just wants to be like, look, the war burns, but it's not like that.
Yeah, yeah. Many people were thinking that because of him, we were going to start the Third World War, right? But it
Exactly.
didn't happen, of course. There were perhaps many situations, uncountable situations with some leaders and so on. I think that at the beginning of yes, at the beginning of the 2020, right, January, I think some U.S. soldiers or some U.S. These military activity that they had a very important leader in the Middle East as dead. So everybody thought that there was going to be a war, but at the end it didn't happen. So I think he was able to manage things in a very interesting ways, even when he had some meetings with Putin, with the Chinese president and other presidents that were from there. Many people
Yeah.
laughed at him, right? But at the end, he
Yes.
never had really problems, right? Some problems with that.
Yes.
What do you think about
Yes,
that?
that's true. It is true. It's like it doesn't show, but he was against the, I don't know how to, aborto. It's abortion. No, I don't know.
Abortion.
Against abortion. He protected life. He was, the only bad thing was maybe the racist way that he looked like he had a thought, and he knew how to get to the people, to his people. It's the same than Evo Morales, I think. He knows
Yes.
how to get to these guys of the that live outside of outside of the cities, or maybe the people that is still live in the city, and it's resentida. I don't know, they're um,
Yes, yes. You
yeah,
you 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 can say that in a different way, but in which way you want to say? It was like predicted, you can say, even. Okay, it was
Yeah,
like predicted. You
and
can use that
that
word.
way, that was maybe the only bad thing that he did. Um, yeah, he did that, and we don't realize how good how the good things that he did, because he did some good things, but
Yes,
the bad things, the wall and those things, maybe block the and didn't realize, they didn't make us realize the good things that he did.
exactly. And I think one very interesting characteristic that you mentioned, yes, it's the contact and the relationship with his people, as you're saying, right? And it's interesting the comparison about with Evo Morales because, yeah, actually, of course, here we have many people that it's identified with Evo Morales because of the roots, right? Because of how he was able to go from the very beginning, from the very ground, right? To be the president because he was not the one that decided to do it just like that, right? He had like, let's say, quotation marks, a career, right? A project over there. And the thing that happened with Donald Trump, I think, is related in a certain way because he was also the prototype of some U.S. right guy in the sense that he is an entrepreneur, he is millionaire, right? And of course, in the United States, the idea of the United States for many people is that, right? To be able to be someone creative, to be able to be someone rich. And I think that's the main idea of the US, to have the chance of looking for your dreams, right? And make them come true. And I think that idea and the way Donald Trump, right, talked about making America great again, that was the phrase that he used, right? To make America great again. I think it was related to that, to give everything again to the entrepreneurs, to support the chiefs of the enterprises of the companies, to let the U.S. be again, right, someone or something that supports that
Yes,
part of the
yes.
population,
Maybe
right? And that's
maybe the way that he did it, like this, to try to show what he believed and the thoughts was incorrect, but the thinking was a good thing for the Americans. Is what the
yeah.
Americans at the end they want to.
Yes, exactly. And that's why you can still see, right, many people protesting, and I think because they are real supporters. Of course, this is something that it shouldn't happen because he lost. It was elections, and as a democratic country, right? You were saying this also before. We have to accept that. I think that's the worst thing, right? Perhaps that's also a characteristic that also his followers have. That
It's
perhaps they
something really
sometimes,
bad. It's something really bad, the what he did with the Twitters and all those things. But at the end, you can realize how the fear of the United States people, uh, realizing that all South American countries and Latin America, they have socialist governments,
yes.
and I think Joe Biden is that current. Is not. I don't know if it's true, but I read a little bit that he was like that current of thinking.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I read
So
also that at the beginning I think he was like a Republican, but I don't know what happened. They mentioned that at a certain part of his life he decided to change everything. Yes, and I think he has this idea. Perhaps not the same way that Latin American leaders, right, see this socialism, but yes, he goes with that tendency, perhaps. He's this Democrat. Let's see how he's going to do with everything, but yeah, I also get that idea why people are still supporting Trump. It was the idea of having, right, the strong semblance, right, of being this American who looks to be the best, right, who wants to be the best, and so on and so forth. But the thing is that now he lost because perhaps of the mistakes he did, as you were saying, right? He had really good intentions. The ideas that he had were really good. He also made really good things as perhaps not starting war with any other country, but perhaps the way he expressed himself, right, towards people, towards migrants and people who were not perhaps Americans, let's say quotation marks, it was something that made some other people, right, hate him. But well, there's nothing to do about that, right? That's a way of thinking. He has that way of thinking. And well, they were talking also, I want to mention this here, Jaime. They They were talking about the things that they are going to remember or not of the term that he had as president. You can say that one of those positive things are the ones that you just mentioned, right? He didn't start the war, and he knew how to approach or relate with his followers. Now, in the negative aspects, you were mentioning that the racism, right, discrimination, and so on. What other aspects can you see or can you say that you can remember from Donald Trump's term?
Probably the bad things, some bad, like the racist, how he say that America is, make America great again. He related to eliminate all the foreigners, Um,
Yeah.
there's a special thing, in Europe and in United States, more than with Latin people. I think it's with the, how can I say, this guy from Arabia, Middle East,
Okay.
because
Okay.
they're related with the bombs and all those things like atentados. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah, they always call it like some attacks or terrorist attacks.
Yes, with the terrorist attacks, and maybe he's right with some things that he has to control more to not happen in the September again,
Mhm.
11. Like it's something hard to do because you never know who is this and who is that. But at the end, dear Jose, United States is a country made of immigrants. It's not a
Yes.
100%. You cannot say that I'm 100% American. No, it's not. That's not true, because I'm 100% sure that you have in your family some guy from another place, like your grandpa be from Africa, maybe from Europe, maybe from China.
Yes.
It's a country of opportunities, but also is, you cannot say that it's a country 100% pure.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And I think even they try to teach that to people who are in the US because once I was learning about American culture, right? And yes, they showed this that of course after the let's say the discovery right of America, the way they were kind of colonizing everything in America and the United States, and the way they were right starting going west right with that colonization, it was interesting, but the idea there it was that that country was made for everybody in the world, right, to go there and try to follow their dreams, right? And many people from Europe, right, started going there, and you have
Uh-huh.
yes, of course, you if
And
you
also
go
you
and
can
you talk,
realize how they have problems. Like Trump said everything about Mexico, but at the end, California, New Mexico, Texas, they were part of Mexico
yeah,
at the beginning. It's
yeah. Yes, exactly, exactly. It was civil war and war that was there, and of course they kept that part. But yes, you're right. Is that everybody was there, and the United States started like appropriating everything, but it was already a country full of immigrants. Because actually, there is no like American, right?
yes.
Of course, you can talk about Spanish, right? A Spanish that lives in Spain, perhaps of
Same than
the
here. Like no one is pure, here in
yeah,
Bolivia. We
yeah,
all
yeah.
also have, all of us. We have maybe Indian blood in
Yeah,
some part of
yeah,
the hair. Mhm.
exactly. Perhaps if you want to trace older generations, the ones that can do it better perhaps are the ones that live in Europe. But even, right, if you are from Germany, you know that your roots are related to some other, right, civilizations that were there. But perhaps the ones in Europe were the ones that can talk about some older generations because they have that in a certain way. But when they came here, right? Of course, that everybody came here from Europe, from many other places, and the United States is not only about that, right? You have many, many specific areas in which you have people from Asia, right? Even from the Middle East. I think they were talking about Jersey one time, all right? Because in Jersey, I think you have a big amount of other kind of people with other kind of traits, and that's a thing. So it's kind of illogic, right? Illogical to say that America is against immigrants when it was built, right, on the basis of
By
immigrants.
immigrants, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
I
So
will
it
tell
doesn't
you
make
a
sense.
story. Like my aunt, she lives in Maryland, and like when I was living at his house, I remember his neighbor at the front. He He was from Nigeria. The
Oh,
right
really?
next to his door was black, like Afro-American, you know.
Okay.
On the left, he was from China. So and she was from Latin America. So you cannot
Yeah,
talk.
yeah,
You cannot
exactly.
talk about something 100% American. So at the end, something that you have to like say that, but it's good about the United States. It gives opportunity to the people that works, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
Donald
exactly.
Trump was trying to end that, you know, like trying to just say like it's just for us, you know, and he was still being racist because some people they were not like maybe Mexicans, they were maybe their parents were from Mexico, but they were born in America. They were being discriminated because of him, and he was an American, if you want to say that, you know,
Yeah,
citizen, you know.
yeah. Exactly. I think more than that because even Donald Trump, right, kind of in a certain way realizes that that's not the right way of approaching or the right words. Perhaps the words, right? Perhaps the words are not the ones that he should be using because also the idea that he had with the United, well, no, with Mexico, right? United States with Mexico, it was not that incorrect in a certain way that he said that I'm not going to avoid people, right, that wants to
Exactly.
enter the United States legally, right, legally. He just wanted to do that with illegal, perhaps crossing the border. And yes, sometimes people need to do that because they need to do that. They say, right, they need to cross the border, go to the U.S. and send some money right back to Mexico, Guatemala. But the thing that also happens with that, and of course, if it happened here, right in Bolivia, I think we will do the same. If we have some people here and they are doing that illegally, and we're starting realizing because here also in Bolivia, I think we do the same. We discriminate in the same way because they say, right,
Yes, yes,
it
yes,
was a
yes.
Peruvian band, right? It was a Colombian gang, and we are
So,
against
yeah,
people from Venezuela, and it's the same,
yes,
right?
yes,
It's
yes,
the same.
yes. You know, I'm not against my thinking, for example, is not I'm not against anyone that wants to work and give to Bolivia, like work from Bolivia. You know, if a Venezuelan guy, Argentinian guy, Brazilian guy, anyone, even an Indian from the outside of the city comes to help to the development of my country, of my city. I'm not against that. I don't care where you're from. If
Yes.
you do the right things, I'm okay with that. It's the same philosophy that the United States have in a long time, and that's why it's big. You know, Chinese
Yeah.
have something good. Latin America, you can they, um, United States wouldn't be what it is if it didn't have the hard work from Mexico
Yeah.
or Latin American people. You know, Latin American people gets up at 4 a.m. and goes to bed at 10 and works maybe 12 hours a day. You know, and
Yes.
most of Americans are not like that. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you
and also
totally.
one thing that I want
Jaime,
this
I cannot.
one post the account of him. I think they should do the same thing with Evo Morales. For example, I think that Twitter and Facebook should start a review, not just us, because you realize our people like you and me could comment something, and Facebook is like you cannot talk and comment anything for a week, you know, because you say something maybe
Yes.
negro, you know, that is not correct, you know. But
Yes.
they don't realize how dangerous is these guys like Donald Trump. I don't know, some leaders like Evo Morales. Evo Morales, every time that I see his Twitters, it's just rage,
Yes.
angry, bad
Yes.
things, you know.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And what we do with Donald, right? He was not able to get into his Facebook account and also Twitter for some time because he was like divulgating, right, some information that was false or that was like starting this hatred, right? As you were saying, this rage. So yeah, I think it should be allowed. There should be a way to stop that because of course the words of these guys is something really really influential, right, in many people because
Yes,
they have many followers, and if they read something and they see, okay, he's hating this part of the world or he's hating this kind of people, they're going to do it and they are not going to want to understand. They are just going to do it, right? And that's, well, that's nonsense, right? That's too primitive,
yes.
but it happens when
I
when
know,
it's
and you know, if I will be the CEO of Facebook or Twitter, I will do like a review on each country. like maybe looking for a guy that's explaining what is the situation in each country, and try to help in that way. Because with these things, when the only thing that they do is like do bad things. For example, Evo Morales last year, he said that coronavirus didn't exist, that you don't need
Yeah,
to take care of you, you don't need to use a mask, wear a mask or anything. And at the end, he got the coronavirus and he went to a private. But at the last year, he
yeah.
was the responsible of many deaths of these people that believe in him.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Because reading that, some people said, "Okay, I'm not going to use I will wear a mask, right? This doesn't exist. They just want to control us." So yeah, I agree with you. And yes, sometimes Facebook, Twitter, they block accounts that I don't know with nonsense things, right? Because of a picture, because of a joke, and it's just a joke, and you have I don't know. Some people have like 10, 100 followers and they are blocked because of something, but they shouldn't care about that, perhaps, right? They should care about these people who have lots of followers, who are really influential, and who really need to have a limit with lies, because of course it was a lie. You cannot say that that's a perspective, right? Saying that
Hello.
coronavirus doesn't exist, it's not a perspective. That's of course a lie, and that's misinforming people. That's negative,
Exactly, Jose. Yeah,
right?
100% agree with you.
All right. So yeah, I think it was really interesting all of this, Jaime. We need to finish here right now. But again, we have this 1 minute. But I want to ask you again and remind you that tomorrow the presentation. Friday is going to be the last explanation about one more structure that you can use with this TOEFL structure that I taught you, or the Cambridge structure that is going to be taught on Friday. And Monday is the last day of classes and also the last presentation. The only difference is going to be a 15-minute presentation. With
Okay,
that,
yeah.
that's
Tomorrow
going
is
to
gonna
be
be 10 minutes presentation. The other one's gonna be
15.
15 minutes, right?
Exactly. That is correct. So that's it. Do you
Excellent.
have any final questions or comments before finishing?
No, it's perfect. Thank you, Jose. I appreciate it. Thanks for your patience and everything.
That's great. No, it is great. Hi, man. As always, it's a pleasure having a conversation with you. I hope you have a great night and see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Jose. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye bye. Hello. Good evening, Andrea. How are you?
Hi, Jose Luis. I'm okay, thank you.
That's great. So we're going to begin. Before starting, Andrea, very quickly, I want to ask if you have some questions about tomorrow presentation. The parameters are the same, 10 minutes, right? Any topic you want. The only difference is that you have a specific structure. That is the one that we were practicing, right, in class. What is that? Having one question to choose between two options, choosing the option at the beginning of the presentation in the introduction, and only mentioning like an index, right? The benefits, the positive aspects, the reasons, whatever you choose. The development is going to be about, of course, developing those things that you decided to talk about, and the conclusion, a brief summary. Again, it could be 1 to 2 minutes the introduction, 7 minutes to 8 minutes the development if you want, and the last 1 minute or 30 seconds if you want the conclusion. That's more or less the idea. I don't know if you have any questions regarding that, Andrea.
No, thank you, it's clear.
That's great. So let's go to today's work. I think we were reading something really interesting with this. And do you remember the last conversation that we were? Yes, I think we couldn't have it. We didn't read with this about this, right? Andrea, this is the title. Why it's hard for people of color to be themselves at work. Do you remember talking about that?
No, I think that I couldn't be in the last conversation.
All right. So we're going to take advantage because I think this is interesting because of
Okay.
two things, some vocabulary and some expressions that they use in the United States. Okay. So let's read this then,
Okay.
please. And actually, I'm going to read it for you. You tell me everything that you're able to understand. Again, the headline, why it's hard for people of color to be themselves at work. What do you get of this headline, Andrea?
Uh, it's like any person. I think like when you start a job, you you are more shy at first or polite until you have more uh, confidence with other people, so you try to be a little more professional.
Okay, okay. Yes, I agree with you. Now, let's understand a little bit more, perhaps, of this. This happens to everybody, right? It's hard to be yourself, but perhaps only at the beginning, right? And perhaps only in a certain situation. But why do you think here they are saying people of color and to be themselves at work, like every time? Right? Not only the beginning, but every time. Why people of color are uncomfortable and they cannot be themselves at work. What is your guess there, Andrea? What do you think?
Maybe they are more enthusiastic and have another way to speak.
Okay.
Um, yes.
All right. All right. So you are mentioning some characteristics, right? That why some traits on why some people, right, in this case of color as they call it, the headline is in the chat as well. And
Mm,
yeah, it could be about that, right? Some mannerisms, some behavior that they have. And actually, I think you're approaching it on the right way. So let me read the first paragraph and let's see what we get here. This is the
okay.
main idea before the first paragraph. It says, people of color have always felt pressure to hide their personal identities in professional environments. Now, virtual work has complicated code switching even more. So, can you add certain information with this idea, Andrea? What else do you get here? They are talking about pressure here. It will be related to the same. Do you have any other ideas?
It says that people of color try to separate his personal life from his work, but it has been difficult because of virtual work.
Okay, exactly. Here, virtual work has to do something really important, and it's what we're going to read. But sometimes it can be hard to understand why it's going to make that even more complicated. But let's read. This is the case of someone called, okay, Danielle Vinales, because she has like Latin roots. It says, when Danielle, a 24-year-old university employee working in the US state of Virginia, transitioned to remote work in March, she noticed something striking about herself. Colon. She talked with her hands. All right. What do you get here, Andrea? What do you get of this information?
Mm, he talks about a person that and about the change from working to, I think, to going to work in your house, and she realized that
Okay.
he speak a lot with her hands.
Exactly. Exactly. So before going to the next part, what do you get here, and why is it something different to speak with your hands? For example, when you speak, Andrea, do you use your hands a lot, or you just use your mouth to speak? What do you do when you speak? Do you realize that?
A lot of people use their. I don't know. Maybe if I'm uh, more enthusiastic about telling something, I use more hands. But if not that much.
Okay. All right, exactly. Some people, not only when they are enthusiastic, as you're saying, right? They use their hands a lot. But now let's see why this is a little bit, I don't know if call it negative for this person. It says, seeing herself on video conferencing calls, the Miami native became aware of how her speech and actions made her stand out as distinctly Latina, especially in contrast to her white colleagues. Though she had worked at the university for 2 years, she was suddenly self-conscious of her mannerisms and her southern Florida accent in a way she hadn't been before. Whenever she would see her hands go up in the tiny Zoom window, it would be a visual reminder to tone it down. Danielle consciously decided to limit her hand gestures around her white colleagues. So what else do you get here? And what is the problem or what is happening with Danielle with these gestures and what she's trying to do with that?
And she realized that she used a lot her hands uh, and get conscious of this. So he started to use less and less his hands
Okay,
and notice that the other people that are not from that have not Latin roots didn't use her hands that much.
okay, there you go. I think you have all the information very well. If you want to verify something, you can check the chat. In this case, right, it says like Danielle, but this is with L-E at the end. So this is going to be a girl, right? Danielle. So yes, she has a very interesting way of behaving, a very interesting, right, mannerism that is contrasting to what her white colleagues do. And why do you think she's trying to control that, Andrea? Is it bad to use your hands a lot? What do you think is the thought that Danielle is having? Why she wants to stop that?
Because she thinks that she's part of the minority. So
Okay,
to that's why I
okay,
think.
that's great. Yes, no, I think you were the only one perhaps so far, okay, who are getting this really, really good. Yes, everything that you're explaining, Andrea, is really accurate. You're getting the ideas on the point. All right. So yes, that is why. Of course, you don't like being part of the minority. Of course, when you feel different and you see that it's part of a code, right? We're going to talk about codes. So it's a code that they have in office, how they behave. Of course, you want to also adapt, right, in a certain way. That's what most humans do. Of course, sometimes you can be different and you can stand out, right? And that's also positive. But in this case at work, she decided to be part of the majority and, of course, to adapt. That's not negative again, but that has an effect. And look, now let's read. In the chat, I copied and pasted that. Now, with that explanation, Andrea, let's try to define what code switching is by reading that. And this is the last thing I copied and pasted, Andrea, in the chat. Code switching. What do you think code switching is?
Mm, switch is change or exchange.
Mhm.
So trying to switch to change a way of doing something or I don't know.
There you go. Yes, yes, you have the.
Eh, sí.
Oh, tell me, Andrea, what else?
Mm, code is like a code, like a symbol or something that express that you can learn to express something with a code or have information with a code.
Exactly. All right. So let me read the last part to finish today. It says, what Danielle did is an example of code switching. The term, coined in 1950s, was originally intended to describe the way bilingual individuals switched between languages and corresponding identities. In the 1990s, the code switching became part of a national discourse in the United States when a school board in California recognized the use of AAVE, African American Vernacular English, by African American school children, so it could apply for more funding to help them. All right, and let me finish with this. Very briefly, we're going to summarize. It has since evolved to refer to the way, often marginalized, people adjust and adapt their behavior, appearance, and language to avoid highlighting negative stereotypes in school and work environments. In particular, individuals of all stripes tend to conform to corporate culture, consciously or not, which, to generalize, is systematically why. All right? So, there are a lot of information, but I think the idea is over there. What do you get here, and how can you corroborate your idea with this, Andrea, to finish this up?
So code switching is, it says that is about a way to adapt that especially bilingual people have to tone it down, for example, the way they speak or using these gestures.
Okay.
A way to adapt when you are in a different environment, so you can't feel trained to to be part to have like the different uh, uh, ya me perdí.
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, they are adapting, but it's in a marginalized way, right? People adjust, and it's in the chat if you want to check. People adjust and
Mhm.
adapt their behavior, appearance, and language, right? Because they want to avoid highlighting. They don't want to be seen, right, with this quotation mark negative stereotypes. And what are negative stereotypes? Again, quotation mark are the stereotypes or the ways of behaving that is not from Caucasian people, right? Or what they call white people. So it's a little bit negative because, of course, besides being part of the minority, as you mentioned very well, Andrea, this is to avoid being discriminated, right? To avoid feeling that pressure of being different in a country in which you feel that the majority, it feels like that, but it's not like that perhaps all the time. The majority is white, the majority is Caucasian, right? Do you have any final questions or comments to finish up, Andrea?
No, that's all.
There you go. Perfect. If you want, you have that vocabulary and all those words in the chat. That's going to be everything for today, Andrea. Thanks for participating. And tomorrow we're going to work on the presentations. All right?
Okay, see you tomorrow, Jose
Great.
Luis.
See you tomorrow. Bye bye.